Something big is brewing in Las Vegas. The Raiders are standing at a crossroads, and this next game could change everything. A win could bring hope back to Raider Nation, but a loss, it might send this team into total chaos. Let's break it all down, because things are about to get serious. Before we dive into the latest news, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit like, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss an update. Alright, let's get into it. This week, it's the Raiders versus the Titans, and honestly, this one's more than just another matchup, it's a test of pride, leadership, and direction. Both teams sit at 1-4, and if the Raiders lose to a Titans squad that many consider one of the weakest in the league, things could get ugly fast. I'm talking about trade rumors, player changes, and maybe even some coaches getting the boot. That's how high the stakes are. The pressure is on, and the Raiders can't afford another meltdown at Allegiant Stadium. So, what do they need to do to avoid another disaster? Let's start with the biggest key of all, run the ball. The Titans have been terrible against the run, giving up over 600 rushing yards already, ranking near the bottom of the entire NFL. They've also allowed 8 rushing touchdowns to running backs, the worst mark in the league. That means the Raiders have to feed their guy, keep the ground game alive and put the ball in his hands again and again. He's been averaging over 6 yards per carry these past 2 weeks, and when he's involved, the entire offense starts to flow. Use that momentum, build play action, and stop with the predictable formations on second and long. The Raiders need rhythm, not routine. Now, it won't be easy. Jordan Meredith is going to have one of his toughest matchups yet, facing Jeffrey Simmons, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. But if they can open lanes, control the tempo, and stick with the run, they'll have a real shot to take command of this game. This one's not just about X's and O's, it's about pride, urgency, and proving this team still has life left in it. Stay with me, because the next part of this breakdown is where things really start to heat up. The Raiders can't fix everything overnight, but one thing is clear, establishing the run has to be the foundation. When the ground game is strong, it takes pressure off Geno Smith, and that's exactly what this team needs right now. But it's not just about running early. It's about finishing drives. And that starts with using your best player, in the red zone. For some reason, every time the Raiders get close to the goal line, they stop feeding their star running back. Out of 38 red zone plays, only 9 have gone his way. That's less than a quarter of the time. It doesn't make sense, especially when he's been explosive week after week. The numbers prove it. The Raiders rank near the bottom of the entire NFL in red zone scoring, finding the end zone on only about 35% of their trips. That's worse than anything we saw last year, and that's saying something. So why overcomplicate it? You've got a running back who's hot, who's tough, who can carry defenders on his back. Give him the ball. Let him finish what he starts. Until the Raiders start trusting their playmakers where it matters most, the same frustrating results will keep repeating. And speaking of frustration, let's talk about leadership. Because lately, the mood around Geno Smith hasn't been great. Instead of owning mistakes, it sometimes feels like he's deflecting blame, brushing off questions, dodging responsibility. And that's not what you expect from a captain with a C on his chest. Leadership isn't about stats or interviews, it's about setting the tone when things go wrong. If you're frustrated, fine. But show accountability. Rally your team. Because when a quarterback starts pouting on the bench or sounding defeated at the podium, it spreads through the locker room like wildfire. Right now, the Raiders don't just need better execution, they need stronger leadership. Someone who stands up, owns it, and says, "Follow me. We're fixing this." Stay with me, because the next part of this breakdown is where things get even more intense. It's starting to feel like the Raiders' biggest opponent might not even be the team across the field, it's themselves. The talent is there, the pieces are there, but the same mistakes keep repeating week after week. Let's be real, this Raiders team is better than the Titans. On paper, they should win this game. But that only happens if they finally stop hurting themselves. Turnovers, missed chances, and bad decisions have turned winnable games into heartbreakers. If the Raiders want to flip the script, it starts with protecting the football. Geno Smith can't afford another week of forcing throws or losing focus under pressure. When the Raiders win the turnover battle, they're a completely different team. And defensively, that battle begins up front. The Raiders need to get after rookie quarterback Cam Ward early and often. The Titans' offensive line has been a disaster, already allowing 19 sacks, one of the worst marks in the league. That's where the Raiders must strike. Pressure him, collapse the pocket, make him uncomfortable. When teams have done that this season, he's looked like a totally different player. Yes, the Raiders' secondary is thin, missing key coverage players, especially after losing Jermaine Pratt, but that's exactly why the pass rush has to step up. If the front seven can't bring the heat, this defense will keep giving up easy completions in that soft zone coverage we've seen far too often. Patrick Graham has to mix things up, stop relying so heavily on the same conservative schemes. Take some risks. Blitz more. Confuse the rookie. Because right now, opponents are reading this defense like an open book. And here's another painful truth, the Raiders have forced just 4 turnovers all season. That's near the bottom of the league. Meanwhile, the offense keeps starting drives deep in their own territory, their average starting position is the 26-yard line, the worst in the NFL. That's not just bad luck, that's bad execution. The defense needs to create shorter fields, give the offense a fighting chance, and shift momentum early. Finally, the Raiders have to show they can adjust mid-game. Too often, they come out strong in the first quarter, scripted plays look great, but after that, it all falls apart. No rhythm. No adaptation. Just the same plays that defenses already expect. This team can't afford to be predictable anymore. The second and third quarters are where games are won, and right now, that's exactly where the Raiders disappear. If they want to avoid another embarrassing meltdown, it's time to show growth, on the field, on the sidelines, and in the locker room. Because right now, Raider Nation isn't just hoping for a win, they're waiting for a response. Stay with me, the next part dives into what could truly define this team's future. Every Raiders fan has seen this pattern, the team starts fast, looks sharp early, and then completely falls apart in the middle of the game. It's like clockwork. The first quarter gives hope, and the second and third quarters crush it. That's been the story all season, flashes of brilliance followed by long stretches of silence. The offense stalls, the defense bends, and by the fourth quarter, the team is scrambling just to stay alive. You can't win consistently in the NFL playing like that. Good teams adjust. The Raiders? They're still trying to figure out how. Sure, on paper, it might look like the defense is holding up, giving up just a few points late, but don't be fooled. In those games, opponents have already taken their foot off the gas. They're coasting while the Raiders are chasing. That's not improvement. That's survival mode. The heart of the problem isn't effort, it's adjustments. This team simply hasn't shown it can adapt once the game starts shifting. The Raiders can't just show up for the first quarter, disappear for the next 2, and expect to mount a miracle in the fourth. That's not strategy, that's desperation. And if this pattern continues, the consequences could be massive. Let's be honest, if the Raiders lose to the Titans, that's 5 straight losses. 1-5. That's not just a bad record, that's a full-blown crisis. At that point, things won't stay quiet in the locker room. Players will get frustrated, fingers will start pointing, and it won't be long before some veterans either ask for trades or get shipped out. Because when a team hits that kind of wall, the front office has to make moves, and that could mean anything from key trades to coaches losing their jobs. Losing to the Titans wouldn't just hurt in the standings. It would send a message that this version of the Raiders isn't working. And once that happens, the focus shifts from trying to win to rebuilding. No one in Raider Nation wants to hear that word. But if the team doesn't show fight, discipline, and a plan this week, that's exactly where they're headed. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're talking about what a loss like that could truly mean for the future of this franchise. That if the Raiders lose to the Titans, there's no sugarcoating it, the season might as well be done. The noise around this team would explode, and it wouldn't just be about the losses anymore. It would be about leadership, accountability, and whether this organization has completely lost its direction. I said it before, and I'll say it again, if the Raiders can't find a way to beat Tennessee, a team that's been struggling badly, then what's left to believe in? At 1-5, history shows the odds are almost impossible. Since 1970, only a handful of teams have ever climbed out of that hole and made the playoffs. And let's be honest, this team doesn't look like one of them right now. The roster has holes everywhere, thin depth, inconsistent starters, and coaching that's failed to maximize the talent they do have. You can talk about potential trades or bye-week adjustments all you want, but if you can't beat a Titans team that's barely hanging on, then it's not about adjustments anymore. It's about facing the truth. That truth might lead to big changes. When a team reaches this kind of breaking point, somebody always pays the price. Whether it's a coach, a coordinator, or someone in the front office, the calls for accountability will be loud and relentless. And honestly, it's shocking that no one's been fired yet. The Raiders have been making the same mistakes for weeks, and the frustration has built to a boiling point. If this team drops to 1-5, you can bet that the front office will start looking for a scapegoat, because someone will have to take the fall. If that happens, the first target might be special teams coach Tom McMahon. The Raiders' special teams unit has been a disaster, statistically one of the worst in the entire league. Missed assignments, poor returns, and sloppy execution have cost this team valuable field position and momentum. And when everything else is crumbling, those details matter even more. This isn't about one mistake or one bad week. It's about a pattern, and it's been clear for too long. If the Raiders lose to the Titans, the conversation won't just be about the game anymore, it'll be about survival. Stay with me, because next, we're going to talk about how deep this problem really goes and what it might mean for the entire coaching staff moving forward. To me, the first person on the hot seat has to be Tom McMahon. And right behind him, I'd keep an eye on Carroll. Sure, the offensive line has looked a little better recently, but if they fall apart again against Tennessee, that pressure is going to come right back. And this time, it could cost someone their job. If the Raiders lose, the next step might be even tougher, selling assets. That's when you know the rebuild is officially starting. I can tell you this, multiple NFL teams have already called the Raiders about Jakobi Meyers. There's been quiet talk about Max Crosby too, though I'll say this, Crosby isn't going anywhere right now. He's the heart and soul of this team, and if the Raiders ever did consider trading him, it would take something massive, I'm talking 2 first-round picks minimum. But Jakobi Meyers? That's different. He already asked for a trade, hasn't gotten a new deal, and honestly, it's hard to imagine he wants to stay much longer. Then there's Dylan Parham, who'll be a free agent soon. Maybe they move him and give Carl Rogers a shot. Tyree Wilson hasn't lived up to expectations, and Malcolm Koonce has struggled badly this year, so if someone's willing to give you value, maybe you listen. This is the reality of a rebuild. You can't fix everything at once, but you can start by clearing out what's not working and building around the few players who do make a difference. If the Raiders lose to Tennessee, it can't just be business as usual. Someone's got to be held accountable, whether that means a firing, a benching, or a trade. Because doing nothing after another ugly loss, that sends the message that losing is acceptable. And it's not. The Raiders have to show that they're serious about change, that they're done pretending everything's fine when it's clearly not. This could be the week that forces them to finally face reality. So yeah, a rebuild might be painful. It might mean tough decisions and saying goodbye to fan favorites. But it's the only way to move forward, because if you lose to the Titans, you can't just keep running in circles and expect a different result.